Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. It's great having you on the channel today. We're going to be watching Hurricane Erin move and accelerate off into the North Atlantic. Thankfully, still lots of waves and rip currents. Here is Invest 90L. This is likely going to be our next storm and potential hurricane. And we're also watching Invest 99L. This storm will likely make it all the way across the Atlantic over the next week or two. And as it moves into the central and western parts of the Caribbean, we could be looking at a potential storm trying to develop towards the end of the month into the beginning of September. Let's get into it. And what is this showing up on the GFS for the first week of September? We'll discuss this in detail. And Hurricane Erin, infrared satellite view. Here's the East Coast. You can see the storm really winding up. Massive circulation. You can see some of the clouds reaching the East Coast here as well. So there it is, accelerating to the northeast here. And through the rest of the Atlantic, look at that massive circulation associated with Hurricane Erin. Just a crazy huge storm at this point, just unraveling. And we have Invest 90L here, skimming the northeast Caribbean islands here with heavy rain, gusty winds. This was likely our next storm, and we'll be watching right out here. This is Invest 99L. Still bursts of convection around it. It will be heading into less favorable conditions. However, I still think this has a chance to develop in the central and western Caribbean later next week. And the next big tropical wave moving off the coast of Africa. All right, so starting off with the tropics, our GFS model, and then I'll show you the European model. Here is Erin. Yeah, over the next 24, 36 hours, this storm is going to continue to grow in size. Thankfully, it's moving east-northeasterly here, so it's only going to brush parts of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland here. Continued wave and rip currents, coastal flooding in those very low-lying areas. That's going to be zooming out into the North Atlantic towards northern Europe there. Now, that's not going to give us too much time because we're watching Invest 90L here. You can see on Friday, here it is spinning across parts of the northeast Caribbean islands. It's going to skim some of these areas with gusty winds and heavy rain. Here is Bermuda. This storm looks like it's going to come pretty close, if not over Bermuda, as a potential hurricane. Here it is on the 25th. So we may be looking at a storm, although this one is a very compact size, spinning off towards Newfoundland by about the 27th and 28th of next week. So watch out. This may affect some land areas. Now, as we get into this area right out here into the MDR, Invest 99L. This is more of a complicated storm. Also, we have a big tropical wave behind it moving off the Cape Verde region. As it moves westward Friday into Saturday, we're going to start to see the storm get into a little bit more hostile environment. As you can see, this tropical wave moving westward here, this tropical disturbance, I should say. And as it continues westward, it pretty much weakens to a wave. You see the GFS kind of loses it at this point. This is the 26th. So as we get into next week, all we're left with here is some scattered showers and thunder showers moving through parts of the Lesser Antilles. And we do try to see a resurgence on the backside of it here. However, the energy is pretty much absorbed across the northern part of the South American coastline here until around the 29th. Some of this energy starts to move towards Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. So yeah, obviously the energy does start to bend more south and it gets bogged down across the southern Caribbean and the north coast of South America. And here it is on the 30th. It's starting to crop up here. European kind of hinted at this, although it was a bit further north and west here. But here it is. And I'll show you the European model in a couple minutes. But here it is on the 30th, really trying to get its act together across Jamaica, the Cayman Islands. This run is a little bit further north than the previous run. So that has been the trend, to bring this a little bit further to the north. If we look behind that, we have another large tropical wave moving off the Cape Verde area. Also, if we go across Central Africa, this is how they're just lining up here. So we just have one right after another across Central Africa. That's going to set us up for a very busy couple weeks, especially in September here as we head towards peak hurricane season. So here we are. We just backed this up right around the 1st into the 2nd. We start to see a couple areas here. Here's this front, maybe a spin up here off the southeast coast, but this system, positive signals have been flashing with this system as we head through September 3rd. This run of the GFS is trying to take it north into the Gulf. So that's a development we'll have to keep a very close watch on. You know, the previous model runs have kind of suppressed this further into South America, so we have plenty of time to watch it. Not to say this is going to happen, but it is an interesting development, especially if we see other models start to follow suit. And behind that, intertropical convergence zone remaining active as we head into the first week of September. But look at this. This is a front in here, and this storm could really start to get cranking along the southern portion of this as moisture really funnels across South Florida. Let's take a look at the Euro. Now, before we get into the European model momentarily, I just had the last part of the GFS run actually come in here. All right, as we continue here, loading the rest of the GFS. Don't pay attention to storm track, but here it is. Positive signals way out here on the GFS, 372 hours out. A hurricane heading towards Texas, a major hurricane, with lots of deep tropical moisture all across the Gulf and off the southeast coast, and maybe another storm trying to form off the Florida coast. All right, so I wanted to show you here, thanks to Tropical Tidbits, for our European model analysis. Here is Erin on its way out. Still plenty of beach erosion, riptides here into the northeast as this system, thankfully, is going to not pretty much affect Southeast Canada here, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland. You're going to get off the hook, but still plenty of beach problems. Here's our next system, Invest 90L. This likely spinning up into tropical storm by this weekend, so our next named storm is on the horizon. Let me just back it up here. Here is Invest 99L right out here. This is the storm we're really going to watch, because it's going to make it all the way across the Atlantic here into the Eastern Caribbean by about Monday. It's moving through the Lesser Antilles. I will zoom in onto this momentarily. Intertropical convergence zone remaining very active out here, you can see. And as we continue through Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, you can see these showers and thunderstorms really spinning up here across the central parts of the Caribbean and eventually the northwestern areas as we head through Friday, August 29. So we'll keep an eye on it here. Next big waves moving off the African coastline here for the last day of August. We'll be watching this very, very closely. Look at this big mess up here into parts of the Gulf. We're going to be zooming into this as well, but the intertropical convergence zone, Caribbean, is going to be in an area of extreme potential development as we head into this first week of September. Look at this. We're just lining up the waves here. 1, 2, there's one right south of Florida here as well. 3, 4, and 5. This is a crazy amount of tropical waves. Let's zoom in. All right, so we're taking a look at the European run for the Caribbean and Gulf. Closer look here. As we head through Sunday into Monday, watch out. A little tropical wave out ahead of it. Jamaica could bring you some heavier rains. Here's Invest 99L. This is going to be heading through the Lesser Antilles, Trinidad, Tobago, St. Vincent, Barbados. All these areas got to watch out for gusty showers and thunderstorms as we head through Monday. Look at that. And then on Tuesday, Europeans continuing to bubble this further westward. So I think Invest 99L really has to be watched for some potential development, especially in the Caribbean here. We're going to continue to watch it as we go through the 29th into the 30th. We'll be watching the Gulf up here as well. So the European kind of going crazy across the Gulf here. And by this point, you can see continued showers and thunderstorm action across the northern Bahamas, North Central Caribbean Islands, and Northeast Caribbean Islands, as well as we have a couple tropical waves. Here's another big one moving just off the screen into the northern Lesser Antilles. We could be looking at some tremendous development as we head through the first week of September. Invest 99L, I had a lot of confidence in this system, and it's starting to show up that some models are finally bringing this up to tropical storm status in the Caribbean. This is one to definitely watch for. Thanks to Tropical Tidbits for this. One thing to note, the ship's model takes this to Category 1 hurricane. And here's our Invest 90L. That's the system that's going to be recurving. Obviously, it has a better chance of exploding here into a Category 1 and Category 2 storm. So this is likely definitely going to be a hurricane. Sea surface temperature analysis, you can see where the upwelling is from Erin, but even well behind it here, it's filling back in with above average sea surface temperatures. Look at the Gulf. Look at the Caribbean. This is why if Invest 99L makes it into this region, we're probably going to see an explosion of this storm. And here we go to the Western Caribbean, Central America. Yeah, it's pretty dry through Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, at least through the first part of the weekend. Things really do start to moisten up, though, as we get this tropical wave action. All eyes are going to be on our potential system as it moves across the Caribbean. Look at Jamaica here, 50 to 70, some areas upwards of 120 millimeters. So we'll have to watch out depending on where you are. Dominican Republic, 40 to 60. West central parts of Dominican Republic, upwards of 150 to 200. And look at here, Honduras, 130, 150. Same for Belize, upwards of 170 millimeters. And the Western Caribbean here, Central America, pretty dry through the weekend until we get to about next week. The middle of next week, we do start to see the surge in tropical moisture. You can see as we head through the 30th, that's where we start to see this potential energy from Invest 99L. We could see a huge surge of tropical moisture as this thing tries to develop around the Cayman Islands, 100 to as much as 200 millimeters in some of these areas. Look at Jamaica, anywhere from 90 to 170 millimeters. Also zooming in here, you can see heavy tropical moisture around west central parts of Dominican Republic, upwards of 2 to 350 millimeters, much lesser amounts of 40 to 60 in eastern Dominican Republic. And look at Belize here, 100, 150 millimeters on average here. And eastern Caribbean here for the European run. There's our initial storm potential, and then we'll be watching whatever happens with Invest 99L here. Moving through the Lesser Antilles, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday time frame. Yeah, and then it kind of moves across the Caribbean here. So look at 125, 135 millimeters in some of these island locations. Trinidad, Tobago, a little bit less here, 60 to close to 100 millimeters in some areas. So some gusty showers and thunder showers moving in. Puerto Rico, probably right around 1 to 2 inches here. And looking at the Eastern Caribbean here for our GFS run, there's Invest 90L. It's going to provide the Virgin Islands here, Northeast Caribbean Islands, Northern Lesser Antilles, with about 20 to 30 millimeters here. It's a pretty small circulation. Invest 99L, as we get into next week, that's going to be surging tropical moisture across the Southern Lesser Antilles here, Trinidad, Tobago. GFS going all in for you here, about 100 to 125, 150 millimeters here, all the way up the Lesser Antilles chain here. Parts of Puerto Rico upwards of 2 inches potentially. All right, so here we are with RHRRR Future Radar. You can see through 9 p.m. here, there is going to be those outer bands continuing to reach parts of eastern North Carolina, Delmarva, southeast New Jersey here. Just some very, very heavy wind action, wave action, and some gusty, showery action. So watch out as we continue through midnight. This is going to continue to pull off to the north and the east, thankfully, here. So there's the wind radius. Thankfully, a lot of the heaviest winds have made it offshore. Now, as we go through the rest of our HRRR Future Radar, as we head through early Friday, here are some showers and thunderstorms across west central parts of North Carolina and South Carolina. Look at the Gulf Coast pretty much lighting up here as we head through 7 p.m. on Friday evening. High pressure really in control this region here. We have a mesoscale convective system up here. That is heading up towards Ontario. And look at this. Parts of the Carolinas, South Carolina in particular, Florida, parts of coastal Texas as well. We're continuing with the shower and thunderstorm action. Now, for later weekend, we'll be watching this front drop down into the northeast on Sunday. So for your Friday, a marginal risk across the plains into parts of the upper Midwest, just general thunderstorms across the south. Now, as we go to Saturday, Yeah, just general thunderstorms across the east. I would not be surprised, though, if by Sunday, especially into the northeast, we get a marginal risk at least. All right, so picking up where our future radar left off here, you can see what we're going to be looking at. Of course, Erin's going to be a thing of the past. This next storm here on the 23rd and 24th is going to kind of scrape the Outer Banks here. And then look at this, kind of like a coastal low up the coast. So we'll have to watch out for that. Now, as we head through the 26th into the 27th, you do start to see a northerly flow pattern kicking off the lakes here. That's going to be some much cooler air. We'll get into those temperatures. We could be looking at 60s for highs. Now, look at this. As we head on into the 28th, this storm dives southward across the southeast, and we'll be watching waves of low pressure off the southeast coast, and we could be looking at a storm moving through parts of the northeast as well. Maybe a squall line right around the 29th into the 30th. We'll also be watching for deep tropical moisture heading into Texas and parts of South Florida as well. High pressure kicking across the lakes as we head into the first week of September, but all eyes are going to be drawn to the tropics here. We have tremendous tropical moisture, and somewhere in here, especially the Northwest Caribbean, maybe heading into the Southern Gulf, we could be looking at a potential storm here. That's something we'll have to keep a very close watch on. Picking up where our feature radar left off here on the European run, you can see showers and thunderstorms across the southeast as we continue through the weekend. Later Saturday evening, you can see this front starting to kick across parts of Ontario. That is going to bring a line of storms initially, a shortwave trough out ahead of it on your day, late morning, early afternoon on Sunday. Watch out. This low is going to try to spin up off the southeast coast. Whether it becomes anything tropical remains to be seen. It's more or less mimicking a nor'easter. But look at this. As we continue through later Sunday, we see more organized showers and thunderstorms across the northeast. This is where we could see some severe weather, especially into western New England as well. Now, look at Monday into Tuesday. We finally start to clear things out here. Actually, let me just back it up here. There's actually some instability. Lake effect. Yeah, the lakes are so warm. We're going to see some 60-degree air temperature readings here across parts of the lakes. And as we continue through Friday the 29th, look at this. Gulf Coast, plenty of tropical moisture we'll have to keep an eye on. High pressure building up here across the Midwest, Northeast, and Southeast Canada. As we continue through the last day of August, yeah, Texas all the way down to Louisiana, Florida, heavier rains continuing. We'll go over those rainfall amounts momentarily. We could have a low pressure system trying to form here in the Eastern Gulf. Could this be tropical? It's quite possible. It makes a run up the U.S. East Coast. It may be a more nor'easter style system as well. Look at this. Trough moving through the lakes and northeast kicks off showers and thunderstorms. The 3rd into the 4th of September, high pressure building in, and there's our last frame. All right, so here we are with our rainfall amounts on the European run. Yeah, so the southeast up towards the Outer Banks by early next week. It looks like more rain is ahead. Of course, the northeast as we get into later Sunday. So that second half of the weekend. So here we go. Yeah, look at this. All the way through the first week of September. Look at Florida here. 8, 9, 10 inches, some of these areas. Gulf Coast. This is what I'm seeing here is positive signals of very heavy tropical rains. That means more tropical wave action, more tropical moisture, and potential storm and hurricane action. Here up into the northeast, beneficial rain 1 to 2 inches as well. Look at Texas. Some of these areas getting upwards of 7 to 8 inches. All right, taking a look at rainfall amounts here on our GFS model, comparing to that to your European. Very, very similar here. So there we go. As we continue through time into the first part of September, September 2nd. So yeah, Florida, we're continuing to watch for 3 to 6, maybe 8 inches in some areas. Extreme Outer Banks here, 3, 4, maybe 5 inches. Northeast, about an inch or 2 on average. Look at Texas, though. Parts of Texas here could see upwards of 7, 8, 9 inches. Watch out. Pretty dry here across parts of the Midwest and Ohio Valley. And before we continue with more weather coverage, please smash that like button, everyone, if you liked the video, if you made it this far. And don't forget, subscribe if you haven't already. I'm trying to get to 20,000 subscribers here. We're closing in. We're within like 150 or so. So definitely subscribe, bell notification button, question or comment down below. I love to read your questions or comments. Let's continue with more weather. upper air pattern here on our European run. So there is, thankfully, this trough that's kept us getting out of the way Erin here. It's like attracting Erin like a magnet. It's about the only thing that helped us here. So behind it, we have a disturbance here across south central Canada. As we go through the weekend, that is going to drop down into a pretty big trough early next week. The weekend and early next week across the east. Look at parts of the east coast here as well. It's going to be some stormy times of it here. Look at that trough continuing through the last weekend of August. That does start to lift out, but it leaves a cutoff low down here into parts of the southeast, and then more troughiness. This is going to mean temperatures will be much cooler as well. And our NAO index here, we are going towards a more neutral phase. That would signify by September 1st into the first half of September, quieter conditions. And looking at our MJO index here, what is going on? Well, we are in phase 3, and we're going to slowly just meander around phase 3 and 4, at least through the next month. Quieter times are ahead, according to the MJO. And the Western Pacific here, what is going on out here? Well, we have what's left of Tropical Depression Ling Ling here. That storm is just skipping along the southern Japanese islands, gusty winds and heavy rain. We may have another storm try to kick up early in the later portion of the weekend here towards parts of southern China here and northern Vietnam. We'll keep an eye on it here. Dry conditions remaining if we just zoom in up South Korea, Seoul, through next week, although we do get a frontal boundary moving through about the 25th. You can see right across Japan here, so we'll have to watch for that. Dry conditions sitting back in for Seoul here, South Korea with a few showers by the 28th. We're going to start to line up the storm action here. You can see between Taiwan and the Philippines, towards Hong Kong come the end of the month, right around the 30th. Still showing up Japan dry here through South Korea as well. And then we do start to get this tropical moisture and potential tropical systems feeding north come the end of the month, beginning of September. So we're going to watch out. We got some good opportunities for some typhoon action out here in the Western Pacific through September 1st. And the Western Pacific rainfall totals here, northern Philippines, obviously where the monsoon's kicking in, northern Vietnam. You have some tropical activity. We're going to be watching in excess of 300 millimeters in some of these areas. Look at the Korean Peninsula, mostly dry through next Tuesday. Japan as well, except the southern and northern Japanese islands. But it does start to get much more wet across Korea, Seoul there, all the way through the Japanese islands. Look at that. As tropical moisture is going to start to surge north here. So watch out some of these areas. Look at northern Vietnam here. 400 to 500 millimeters. Taiwan, yeah, right around 100 to 200. Look at Seoul here, right around 110. Tokyo, right around 60 to 100. So some of these areas are starting to really moisten up. And looking at our Canadian weather outlook as we continue through the rest of the week here into the weekend, we're going to see this storm across Manitoba, Saskatchewan move towards Ontario. I have some bad news. This is going to set us up for a very dry weather pattern out here, especially in Alberta. These areas where the wildfires were burning earlier last month. So unfortunately, it looks like the trough sets up across eastern Canada here. We will have some hurricane potential across southeastern parts of Canada here, especially with what happens with Invest 90L. Newfoundland, you may be in the crosshairs on the 27th. Nova Scotia, you're not completely off the hook either. But we're just going to watch storm after storm just plummet across eastern parts of Canada towards Quebec, southern Quebec. Look at these areas through the 30th here. We're watching these areas of low pressure just wind up here through the Canadian Maritimes. And here's our last frame. You can see high pressure building in across Hudson Bay. And unfortunately, dry conditions remain out west here. And our Canadian rainfall, you get some little bit up here into Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba areas. Alberta, hopefully we can get you some more rain because the wildfires are going to really start to rage. Unfortunately, it's not looking that great all the way through September 5th here. All these Pacific systems going north into the Yukon and Alaska, leaving us pretty dry here. Look at eastern Canada, though. This is with that trough, 60 to as much as 130 millimeters of rain. We'll also have to watch out for missing tropical or very close tropical systems here in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. And here we are looking at our temperatures through the rest of the week and the weekend. Oh, this is so nice. Look at these 70s. Just very beautiful. Even some low 80s here throughout the Ohio Valley into the northeast. And that continues. We do see probably our warmest day up here into the northeast and Ohio Valley, eastern Great Lakes into the mid-80s. Some areas getting 87, 88 degrees. It'll be short-lived, though, because look at Sunday. Oh, wow, look at these 60s back here. 70s throughout the Ohio Valley into the northeast and Great Lakes region. That is going to pivot south and east. Look at these 60-degree temperatures pushing across the lakes. This is going to push the 90s way down south here as we get into Tuesday. Look at this. There is actually, look at Cleveland, in Erie, in parts of Buffalo. These areas could be in the upper 60s on Tuesday. August 26th for highs into the 27th. Those 60s pivot into the interior northeast. Extended forecast from our hometown viewers, bringing it into Scranton's upper Susquehanna River Valley of New York and Pennsylvania. We continue through Friday into the weekend. Look at this. Beautiful sunny skies, low to mid 80s. By Sunday, unfortunately, that is our rainy, stormy day. Showers and thunderstorms likely. Some could contain damaging wind and large hail, especially in the afternoon and evening hours into Sunday night. Rain continuing, but look at this. Monday into Tuesday of next week, we continue to clear it out with much cooler temperatures in the 70s. Plenty more weather to come. Here is a look at my affiliate. Check out these awesome, amazing maps. I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteoMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, Super Thanks. You can smash that Super Thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks everyone. Share that video, subscribe if you haven't, smash that like button.